Alrighty, this is Symposium Room 2. And without further ado, we're going to get started with Samuel Kim presenting his poster, Planning or Value Updating, Deconstructing the Role of Hippocampal Replay in Decision Making. Take it away, Sam.
Hi everyone, my name is Samuel Kim and I'm a rising senior at Sloan High School. Now, let's be honest for a second here. How many of us made a very calculated decision last night to trade a few hours of sleep for a little time polishing and submitting our paper? That exact mental trade-off, where our brain weighs a memory of past deadlines against a short-term reward of just one more tweak, is precisely what my research is about. It tackles a key question in neuroscience. How does our brain use past memories to make better decisions for the future? If you look at the introduction section on the bottom left of the poster, you'll see we're investigating a process in the brain's hippocampus called memory replay. This is where the brain rapidly reactivates neural patterns of past experiences, like a memory playing at 20 times speed. The leading theory, the planning hypothesis, suggests this is a brain simulating the future. You can see this visualized in the diagram just below the introduction test. The left side of that diagram shows the core idea. The rat replays a path to the cheese to help it plan its next move. This is supported by studies like Pfeiffer and Foster, 2013. However, as my introduction notes, the scientific evidence is kind of contradictory. Other studies, like those from Foster and Wilson or Carey and coworkers, find that replay often represents where an animal just was, not where it's going. This inconsistency led us to ask, what if replay's primary role isn't planning at all? This led us to formally test the value update hypothesis, shown on the right side of that same diagram. Instead of planning the next action, we argue that replay is a powerful learning signal. It recalls past rewards to update the long-term value of our options. To formally test this, we move on to the middle column, the methods section. We analyze data from Gillespie 2021, where rats performed an 8-armed bandit task. As you can see from the small maze diagram, they had to switch between a search phase and to find a new goal and a repeat phase to exploit a known one. Our analysis was two-pronged. First, as listed under point 2, we built three competing reinforcement learning models to test the long-term function of replay. Second, under point 3, we use a generalized linear model, or GLM, to dissect the immediate trial-by-trial influence of each event. This brings us to our results located in the top right of a poster. First, let's take a look at the reinforcement models. In figure 1b, the bottom plot, you can see that the standard reinforcement model failed to provide a significant improvement over baseline, with a p-value of 0.34. In stark contrast, if you look just above it at figure 1a, our replay as forgetting model was highly successful. Formalizes the idea that replay actively prunes or suppresses the value of other options, which provides a significantly better explanation for the animal's long-term behavior. This establishes the long-term story. However, to understand the immediate mechanism, we turn to our GLM results in figure 2, the table of coefficients. Here, we found a small but significant approach effect. Replaying an incorrect arm actually made rats slightly more likely to choose it on the next trial. This seems to contradict our forgetting model, but the key here is the key to resolving this is in the interaction term. The most critical finding is in the last row of the table, a significant negative interaction between is goal and replayed. This demonstrates that the approach effect was powerfully attenuated when the replayed arm was correct goal. To be precise, we can sum the main effect of replay as positive 0.36 and the interaction effect as negative 0.39. The result is negative 0.03, which is negligibly different from 0. This indicates that replaying the known correct answer had no additional impact on the animal's behavior. This key insight brings us to our conclusion in the bottom right corner. Our findings suggest that replay creates a sophisticated two-step value update mechanism. First, replay brings back an option to mind, creating a transient approach bias that could promote exploration. Second, the brain reevaluates that option store value. If it's a low value option, its value is suppressed for the long term, aligning perfectly with our replay as forgetting model. So, how do we answer the question in the title, planning or value updating? Our work suggests that the answer isn't either or, but that value updating is a general rule. The planning observed in previous studies is a special case of this rule, occurring when one option is so highly valuable that the update mechanism repeatedly reinforces it, producing goal-directed behavior. This broader framework also explains the contradictory findings, like retrospective replay, in the same mechanism working to prune and refine the values of other options. In conclusion, hippocampal replay is a context-dependent learning signal that maintains a cognitive map with implications for AI and psychiatric disorders like PTSD. I would like to sincerely thank my mentor Homero for his continuous guidance and Sahel and the rest of the SRI staff for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for your attention, and I hope that the memory of his presentation positively updates the value of getting enough sleep tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam. It's a great ending. Uh, okay, we're gonna move on now. MD is going to present for us towards unified model predictive control strategies in power electronics, a review of FCS-MPC and CCS-MPC for DC-DC buck converters. Take it
Hello,
away.
okay.
Yeah,
Am
take it
I
away whenever.
audible? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mitochondrial Lahi, and today I am excited to share our research title towards Unified Model Predictive Control MPC Strategies in Power Electronics, a review of FCS MPC and CCS MPC for DC to DC buck converters. So, why is this important? DC to DC buck converters are absolutely essential in modern electronics. You will find them everywhere, from smartphones to reliable energy systems, because they step down voltage very efficiently. But here is the problem. As application demands faster load regulation, lower ripple, and trigger EMI compliance, I mean electromagnetic interference compliance, traditional PID controllers just can't keep with it. That is where a model predictive control or MPC comes in. It's a much stronger alternative because it can predict future system states and optimize control actions in real time. We focused on mainly two variants of the MPC. First, the finite control set MPC or the FCS MPC. This picks from a finite set of switch states. It is ultra fast, but it has variable switching frequency and higher ripple. The second one is the continuous control set MPC or the CCS MPC. It calculates a duty cycle and applies PWM. It is smoother and more EMI friendly, but it's heavier on computation. Although both methods are well studied, fixed frequency side-by-side comparisons are rare due to differences in models, parameters, and matrices, making it hard to choose the right approach. So we asked, what if we could evaluate them under a unified framework and highlight when to use which based on performance, computational load, and real-world applicability? Therefore, we aim to fairly benchmark them under identical conditions by building a unified state-space buck converter model, normalizing 20 plus years of performance data, and proposing a hybrid MPC that combines FCS predictive speed with CCS smooth fixed frequency PWM. To do this, we performed a systematic literature review covering from 2008 to 2025, researching the IEEE, IET, and SGBA databases with the keywords buck converter, FCS MPC, CCS MPC, and fixed switching. We only included papers that used a buck topology, reported at least two quantitative measures like ripple rise time, overshoot EMI, or solver time, and clearly stated the switching frequency. We extracted all the numerical data into SI units, scaled it from 0 to 10 for our plots, and also noted qualitative details like solver type. As you can see on the left side of the poster, we also re-derived both controllers from the same unified mathematical model using Euler discretization. So everything lines up theoretically before comparison. Now, the key findings. For our normalized result, here is what we saw. For the FCS MPC, it has faster rise time about 0 to 3 to 0 to 5 milliseconds. It is simple and works on low cost MCUs and FPGAs, but it has higher ripple around 2 to 3.5% and EMI problems from it has EMI problems of variable switching frequency. The next is the CCS MPC. For the CCS MPC, the ripple is under 1.5%, much smoother using much smoother duty cycles and fixed frequency, better EMI performance, and lower thermostats. But it requires real-time QP solvers and has a higher CPU load. We also noted some recent innovations like the modulated FCS MPC that can cut ripple over 40%, and then the solver-like CCS MPC that can run on mid-tier MCUs in less than 5 microseconds per cycle. If you look at the graph on the poster, you will see our normalized performance comparison of FCS MPC, CCS MPC, and our own proposed unified controller. Let's talk about it. Our hybrid fixed frequency predictive control, which we are proposing, merges FCS MPC speed with CCS MPC smooth fixed frequency output using the same discretized state space model. It has two layers. First, the discrete prediction layer for fast transients, and second, a continuous modulation layer for low ripple. Design stage results project 2.1% ripple and 0.45 millisecond rise time. Graph 2 to 5, so expected voltage tracking, inductor current, control effort, and transient response respectively, I mean from top to bottom. One thing to note that the conceptual graphs on the poster are from unified model applied separately on FCS MPC and CCS MPC. Now, in terms of where each method fixed-based, FCS MPC is great for ultra-fast sensitive systems like drones, robotics, and portable converters and wearables. CCS is perfect for EMI critical high-power applications like medical devices and grid-tier inverters. The hybrid MPC could be ideal for automotive systems and next-gen IoT supplies. Future research trends include MPC dynamically like switching between discrete and continuous modes and AI-based auto-tuning. So to wrap up, we created the first fixed frequency benchmark directly comparing FCS and CCS MPC under unified framework, showing the exact trade-offs in speed, ripple, EMI, and computation. Neither method is perfect, but we believe convergence is possible, and our unified controller is a step in that direction. Our next steps are implement the hybrid model on DSP FPGA platforms, measure EMI spectrum and thermal trace, explore reinforcement learning for online tuning. Finally, I would like to thank my mentor, Mr. Gaurav Gautam, the Harvard SRI staff, the Harvard Open Bio Laboratory, my peers, and my parents for their unwavering support. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, Roger will be presenting biologically informed graph attention networks for interpretable brain connectivity analysis. Take it away, Roger.
All right. Hi, my name is Roger, and today I'll be presenting my project on biologically informed graph attention networks for interpretable brain connectivity analysis. Now, before I begin, let's talk about the brain, or more specifically, the connectome. The connectome is a comprehensive map of neural connections in the brain and may be thought of as its wiring diagram. Analysis of the connectome seeks to understand how regions of the brain are wired, communicate, and interact. Traditionally, many studies simplify the brain's complex network into anatomical regions of interest, oftentimes only focusing on each region's activity levels derived from functional MRI. These approaches overlook the actual structure of the brain, specifically the white matter pathways that act as wiring, connecting different regions. You can think of functional MRI as telling you which cities in a country light up at the same time, but ignoring the highways between them. My work focuses on those highways. The microstructural detail of these white matter tracks form the foundation for a higher level function and are crucial when analyzing the brain, which brings us to our research question. Can we build a more biologically meaningful model of the brain in order to learn the structural differences between genders while giving us interpretable results? To answer this, I designed a heterogeneous graph representation to model the brain, where there are two distinct types of nodes representing each white matter tract and anatomical region. Edges are then drawn between nodes to represent spatial intersection. To generate these graphs, I use several diffusion imaging techniques. A constrained spherical deconvolution-based tractography model was used to generate streamlines. The quick bundles algorithm was then used to cluster these streamlines, effectively reducing noise and forming the anatomical tracks. A diffusion tensor imaging model was then used to extract biologically informed node features, such as fractional anisotropy, which measures the directionality of diffusion at each voxel, along with streamline density, all of which give insight into the brain's structural integrity. This is summarized in figure 4 on the bottom left. Now, let me guide you to the center of the poster, model architecture. We designed a model architecture that is able to learn the structural differences in our graphs and predict gender of each subject. The model consists of three main parts. First, the node encoders map our biologically informed features into a shared hidden space, ensuring uniform dimensions. A graph stage layer then captures local graph structure and internode interactions to better represent our node features. Most importantly, we apply a graph attention network, GAT, to learn how to differentiate graphs. Prior works often implemented a traditional graph convolutional network. These models would aggregate information from all neighboring nodes equally. However, with GAT's learnable attention mechanism, the model is able to focus on important parts of the brain and ignoring the uninformative nodes. Not only does this allow for smarter decisions, but we can actually extract these attention scores to see what specific parts are driving our model's decisions. After training our model on the Human Connectome project, we evaluated the model on a held-out test dataset. Despite using up to 5 times less training data than many state-of-the-art models, our model achieved a competitive area under curve score of 0.891. An ablation study was also conducted, revealing the importance of the various layers and attention mechanism. More importantly, we extracted and qualitatively analyzed attention scores from our model. We found that our model was consistently focusing on regions like lateral ventricles, which are known to be larger on average in males due to the greater overall brain size. Furthermore, we also identified key regions like the frontal pole cortex, an area involved with many important functions such as emotions and strategic decision-making. Prior neuroimaging studies had suggested differences in cortical thickness and hemispheric connectivity in these areas between sexes. These results show that our model isn't just performing well, it's learning real biologically relevant patterns without being told what to look for. It also highlights the importance of incorporating both structural integrity and regional context, something that traditional machine learning approaches fail to do. Our model paves the way for more biologically informed models and can be extended to the study of neurodegenerative diseases in the future, where structural changes may be predictive of disease progression. In summary, I built a heterogeneous brain graph combining fiber tracts and brain regions. I used a graph attention network to classify sex and extract interpretable insights. My approach preserves more structure, performs well, and provides biological interpretability. Thank you for listening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Roger. Okay. Next, I believe we have a recording.
These molecules are recognized as foreign, in turn triggering an immune response. In normal conditions, they're safely contained within the mitochondria, but when mitochondria are stressed or damaged by infection, injury, or other stressors, these signals spill out into the extracellular space. So, why do we care about empty dams? Well, when they're released into the extracellular space, they could act as warning signs of SIRS. This means that if we can identify these markers, we might be able to diagnose SIRS earlier and even predict the severity of the condition, potentially saving lives. So, to investigate this, I conducted a systematic review adhering to the PRISMA 2020 guidelines. I reviewed approximately 280 articles, narrowing it down to 52 key studies that specifically looked at the role of empty dams in SIRS and sepsis, both in animal models and humans. I also did 2 risk of bias assessments to develop biases in the included studies. From these studies, I found that mitochondrial DNA was the most frequently studied empty dam. It was consistently found to be elevated in both preclinical and clinical studies of SIRS and sepsis. Other important markers included N-formal peptides, ATP, and mitochondrial transcription factor A. Interestingly, higher levels of mtDNA were linked to worse outcomes, such as organ failure and mortality in sepsis patients. These findings suggest that mtDNAs could serve not only as biomarkers to identify SIRS, but also as prognostic tools for how severe the condition might become. What makes mtDNAs especially interesting is that they don't just act as markers, they might also be involved in triggering the inflammation. Like I said before, double agents. They can activate certain immune receptors like TLR9 and NLRP3 inflammasomes, which in turn amplify the immune response. This means that these markers could also be targets for new therapeutic treatments, potentially helping us manage or even prevent the harmful inflammation seen in SIRS and sepsis. So, to summarize the main findings of the systematic review, MTDAMs hold great promise as early biomarkers for diagnosing and predicting the severity of SIRS and sepsis. Nevertheless, more clinical research is needed to fully understand their role and potential in medical settings. After all, research of MTDAMs not only opens avenues for scientific advancement, but also for the lives behind the data. So, before I end, thank you so much for your attention, and I would be happy to answer any questions you have through Slack or email. I also want to thank my mentor, Ivan Lopez, and the staff of the Student Research Institute for their guidance and support throughout the program. Thank you so much for giving students like me the opportunity to delve deep into the world of research. Thank you so, so much.
Alrighty. Arunima, you're not here, but thank you for your presentation. And next up, we are going to have Milena present amyloid beta's impact on plasticity, an investigation of alterations within the dentate gyrus. Milena, whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Milena Palm, and I will be presenting my research on the amyloid beta protein's impact on plasticity within the dentate gyrus. The amyloid beta is a protein prevalent within Alzheimer's disease, AD, and the reason why I focus on the dentate gyrus is because it is a subregion within the hippocampus that is important for memory consolidation and is severely impacted by Alzheimer's disease. The methodology I utilized was retrieving articles from the PubMed database and screening those articles using the PRISMA guidelines. And for the results, there are many outcomes pertaining to different aspects of the amyloid beta protein. So first I'll talk about the amyloid precursor protein APP, which is a significant gene that that contributes to the formation of the amyloid beta protein. So in terms of APP, just APP, it caused upregulations and downregulations of ribosomal and synapse-related genes. However, for most articles I found focus on the impact of APP deficiency. So one plasticity is called synaptic plasticity, and APP deficiency strengthens synaptic reliability, presynaptic zones, and synaptic transmission. Another form is LTP, long-term potentiation, and it did not reduce LTP. However, it did reduce aspects of it, such as network inhibition and enhanced transmission. And then for homeostatic plasticity, there was no significant impacts on it due to no changes in cellular excitability and dendritic branching. And then for other experiments I found, they utilized co-treated groups with APP and presenilin-1, and presenilin-1 is an important gene to the formation of amyloid beta as well. And it showed similar varying results with experiments that utilize just like APP individually. Next, I'll be talking about AB isoforms and oligomers. So isoforms are variants of proteins, while oligomers are a mixture of those variants. So for the most clear result I found for isoforms, there was the AB2535 isoform that interacted with many mechanisms such as protein phosphatase 1, and it reduced plasticity and decreased dendritic spines. However, in contrast, AB140 and AB142 isoforms showed varying results, specifically with the AB140 isoform, where it reduced LTP, enhanced homeostatic plasticity, and had no impact on short-term plasticity. And using these isoforms, there are different types of treatments that were discovered using these isoforms to combat impaired plasticity, such as borago, personalis, perennial, vanillic acid, and stem cells. And then in terms of AB oligomers, they were shown to alter dendritic spine morphology and LTP in the dentate gyrus. However, this was highly dependent on the mixture of isoforms used to show the increases and decreases of plasticity from the various experiments. And in terms of any plasticity that was impaired, this profile was shown to be a therapeutic treatment to enhance plasticity. Moving on, I'm going to talk about the beta site amyloid precursor protein cleaving enzyme, BASE1, which is crucial for the production of the amyloid beta protein. And the studies I found focused on base one's deficiency. So its deficiency reduced LTP, but increased network excitability, and it blocked homeostatic plasticity. Furthermore, this is not an enzyme that is crucial for the production of the amyloid beta. However, it was coenzyme Q10 was shown to be a therapeutic treatment for impaired plasticity. So it was shown to help plasticity. And then there was other studies that didn't focus on using just the amyloid beta protein. But however, with the two studies I found that focused on it, it was used to show that the neurotransmitter serotonin improved plasticity using its antagonist and agonist. So in conclusion, there are various forms and aspects of the amyloid beta protein that showed varying results. So through this screening, there was not an exact clear relationship with the amyloid beta protein's impact on plasticity within the dentate gyrus. However, with any plasticity impaired by the amyloid beta protein, there was promising therapeutic treatments that were found throughout this screening. And for, furthermore, for like future research done with the amyloid beta's impact on plasticity within the dentate gyrus, I believe that more focus on the of having an amyloid beta group and a tau group, which tau is another protein prevalent in Alzheimer's disease, would be important, and more emphasis on concentrations of amyloid beta use and emphasis on the ages of mice used throughout these experiments would be important. And I would like to thank Harvard SRI and my mentor, Rasika Iyer, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Melina. Okay, next up, the dialect of chromatin in chronic pain and its distortion under opioid exposure, presented by Sahana. Whenever you're ready.
Hi, my name is Sahana, and my talk today will revolve around the idea that chromatin structure modifications play a pivotal role in chronic pain signaling, and understanding the dynamics of this can help us determine potential novel treatments for chronic pain. First, let's start off with the statistics of chronic pain. Chronic pain affects around 1 in 10 people worldwide, and in essence, it's a major healthcare concern. Many of us would be surprised to learn that despite the overwhelming presence of chronic pain in our society, there is still no reliable and efficient treatment due to the physical, mental, and behavioral nature surrounding chronic pain management, which needs to be addressed as soon as possible, and our solution is this. While most drugs used to treat chronic pain work by targeting receptors within pain signaling pathways, we must also consider the concept of neural epigenetic memory. Many of the altered pain pathways in chronic pain involve post-mitotic cells, such as neurons, which make the process of protein synthesis particularly significant. In this context, transcription becomes the primary driver of pain-sensitive genes that are ultimately translated into proteins, and this process is directly shaped by epigenetics. The epigenetic landscape within chromatin serves as a form of cellular memory, fine-tuning the expression level of each gene. In mitotic cells, these landscapes can be remodeled over time. However, neurons rarely divide, leaving fewer opportunities to reset a distorted epigenetic state. By targeting chromatin effectors, we may be able to actively reshape the transcription of pain-sensitive genes and restore them to a more physiological state. Recent research has shown that epigenetic modifications, such as histone modifications, DNA methylation, and non-coding RNA can significantly regulate chronic pain sensing in a way that we can take advantage of after firstly understanding its implications. We found that neuropathic chronic pain has actually been found to increase the activity of chromatin-modifying enzyme histone deacetylase, HDAC, which results in a condensed form of chromatin, thus transcriptional repression. The genes that are repressed facilitate the function of pain-sensing neurons like ion channels, receptors, and others. Interestingly, pharmacological inhibition of HDAC enzymes, which act in chromatin, prevent chronic pain symptoms. DNA methylation, like an HDAC enzyme, is another chromatin structure modification that can affect chronic pain sensing. Typically, DNA methylation represses gene expression and is catalyzed by the enzyme family DNA methyltransferase. In this particular family, we found that these epigenetic enzymes are robustly upregulated in dorsal root ganglion neurons after a nerve injury, the central site of pain signaling. This leads to higher DNA methylation at pain-sensing genes such as potassium channels. Specifically, Figure 2 illustrates a potassium channel subunit critical for neuronal excitability. The presence of methylation at the gene promoter inhibits transcription and subsequently reduces ion channel expression, thus enhancing pain signaling and ultimately resulting in neuropathic chronic pain. Moving forward, opioids are a common treatment strategy for chronic pain, yet prolonged opioid exposure in chronic pain patients has the risk of opioid addiction and pain hypersensitivity. We found the G9A, a histone methyltransferase enzyme associated with gene silencing, has a role in transcriptional repression of opioid receptor genes relevant in neuropathic pain states. Peripheral nerve injury was found to enhance G9A expression and subsequent enrichment of a histone mark, suppressing the analgesic effects of opioids through chromatin condensation, as seen in Figure 3. Remarkably, pharmacological inhibition of G9A was found to reverse these effects, suggesting that targeting G9A offers a novel strategy to attain beneficial opioid response in the context of chronic neuropathic pain. Together, those examples illustrate the impact of chromatin-modifying enzymes, like the acetylation regulators illustrated in Figure 4, that fine-tune gene expression of specific pain-sensitive genes. Thus, targeting these enzymes could help us dynamically regulate chromatin accessibility as we search for treatment. Lastly, I would like to mention that non-coded RNAs can also fine-tune gene expression by regulating the transcription processes as well as controlling the stability of transcripts that will be translated into pain-sensing proteins as illustrated in Figure 5. Overall, we suggest personalized therapeutic strategies that address individual pain phenotypes. This stems from the idea that everybody has a different genome, and one treatment strategy might not work for one person as it does another. However, chromatin structure dynamics play a large role in this, as they truly have the potential to regulate pain signaling and restore normal neuronal states in chronic pain. Though there may be clinical and safety obstacles, we hope that further research into epigenetic modifications can lead us to a more optimistic future with chronic pain. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sahana. Okay, next up, Victor will be presenting how non-coding RNAs influence women's higher risk for Alzheimer's disease. Victor, whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Barbosa, and I'm an incoming freshman at the University of Notre Dame. Well, so first, we're going to talk a little bit about the Alzheimer's disease, which is considered a type of dementia. And currently in the world, dementia affects the life of more than 50 million people. So, and is expected to increase even more due to the fact of the aging countries such as the Western Europe and North America. Well, Alzheimer's disease is also considered a proteopathy disease due to the fact of the misfolded proteins into it. And well, one of the main points is that until this point, we still don't really know how the disease actually develops. However, we're able to identify it. We're able to identify through the process of looking at the amyloid beta plaques and tau protein filaments formation. So, and another important factor about the formation of this disease is the dysregulation in non-coding RNAs, which impact the AD progression, AD standing for Alzheimer's disease. So, on the first diagram in microRNAs dysregulation of Alzheimer's disease, we have a diagram that can show how the loss of MyR107, which is a type of microRNA, and other types of microRNAs function and disrupts the gene silencing, resulting in a key Alzheimer's mechanisms such as the amyloid beta plaque formation and neuronal degradation. Also, on the other diagram, we can see the same thing about the formation of the amyloid beta plaques through the process of the APP. And on the other figure, we also have the tau formation protein. On the other side, looking into the non-coding RNAs and in specifically more about the axis, we have three different graphs that show that the more the axis this long non-coding RNA is expressed, the more one type of enzyme called NEP would be repressed. And what does that mean? That basically means that the more the long non-coding RNA exists, which is more active in women, once they're more expressed, the enzyme that prevents the formation of amyloid beta plaques is going to be reduced, which is going to impact in the AD progression, making the disease going further and faster. And so this long non-coding RNA called axis is also very important into the axon activation process, which it's mostly common in women due to the axon activation of the chromosome 23. And well, in conclusion, the review had my apologies, I'm just a little bit nervous. The conclusion of the literature review had basically analyzed how these non-coding RNAs affect people with Alzheimer's disease and how we can target new type of therapeutic. We can use new therapeutic targets, and mostly is still in an emerging and new type of research area. Is still very unknown, and there's a lot more to research further and do different methodologies and different experiments so we can get better results in how these not only long coding RNAs and microRNAs are impacting in Alzheimer's disease. I would like to thank the Harvard Open Bio SRI staff and my mentor, Carlos Rivera Alvarez. My apology about my accent in English a little bit. And thank you so much for your time and and for your patience.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Victor. And next up, we have Saicharan presenting CUP Navigator, a multimodal CDSS for tumor origin prediction, diagnostic planning, and therapy recommendations in cancer of unknown primary. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Saicharan Valanki, and I'm presenting my research project, CUP Navigator, a multimodal clinical decision support system for tumor origin prediction, diagnostic planning, and therapy recommendations in cancer of unknown primary, shortly known as CUP. CUP is one of the most difficult and deadly challenges in oncology. It accounts for 2 to 5% of all cancer diagnoses, and most patients survive less than 1 year. CUP is a metastatic condition where the primary tumor origin remains unknown even after extensive imaging, biopsies, and molecular testing. Due to the uncertainty of the tumor origin, patients are often given broad-spectrum therapies such as chemotherapy. These treatments are frequently toxic, costly, and ineffective, merely causing harm to patients and poor survival outcomes. On top of this, oncologists must constantly stay updated, interpret evolving diagnostic and treatment guidelines from established sources such as NCCN, ASCO, and NICE, which is overwhelming in their day-to-day workloads. A clear research gap can be seen in the realm of CUP. First, existing tumor origin classifiers such as OncoNPC and GDD-ENS achieve low performance. Secondly, there are currently no RAG LLMs used for diagnostic planning or therapy pathways in CUP. Finally, no clinical platform currently integrates tumor origin classification with the generation of diagnostic workup plans and therapy recommendations. To address these challenges and research gaps, I developed CUP Navigator, a multimodal AI-powered clinical decision support system. It is composed of 3 modular agents, each designed to replicate a specific step in the real-world CUP clinical workflow. The entire architecture is illustrated in Figure 2. The first agent is a tumor origin classifier that utilizes a deep neural network trained on over 25,000 somatic mutation profiles from the MSK-MetTROPSIM dataset. This dataset was chosen due to its public availability, ensuring patient privacy, its coverage of 27 different cancer types, and its diverse demographic backgrounds of patients, which help eliminate algorithmic bias. The second agent is a diagnostic workup agent using retrieval augmented generated LLMs, shortly known as RAG LLMs. This agent was grounded in NICE guidelines, which suggest additional diagnostic steps based on the predicted tumor origin. The final agent is a therapy recommendation agent, also using RAG-LLMs, that retrieves tumor origin and resource availability-specific treatment plans based on ASCO clinical pathways. For this pilot study, both RAG agents were designed for only metastatic breast cancer to establish a proof of concept and prove scalability before the scope is broadened. The tumor origin classifier achieved 90.19% accuracy, a 90.22% for F1 score, and 90.34% confidence across 27 cancer types, outperforming state-of-the-art CUP models such as OncoNPC and GDD-ENS. These results are displayed in tables 1 and 3. The diagnostic and therapy agents each completely minimized hallucinations and maximized adherence for metastatic breast cancer, successfully being grounded in real-world clinical guidelines. Together, these results validate that each individual agent is robust and high-performing. CUP Navigator delivers three transformative clinical benefits compared to traditional clinical workflows. First, speed. The full pipeline executes in under 10 minutes compared to the 1 to 8 weeks typically required for standard diagnosis in traditional CUP workflows. Second, survival. By enabling site-specific therapy earlier, CUP Navigator improves median survival from 8.3 months to 12.5 months. Finally, cost. It avoids toxic empirical treatments and eliminates toxic side effects that can cost up to $24,000 per patient. Together, these grant patients less financial burden and longer survival times. To prepare CUP Navigator for real-world deployment, I plan to automate guideline extraction so that the RAG agents stay continuously updated as NICE and ASCO guidelines evolve. I'll expand the system beyond metastatic breast cancer to include additional deadly cancer types. And finally, I will deploy the platform securely in the cloud so it can be accessed by clinicians in diverse healthcare settings worldwide. To wrap it all up, CUP Navigator is a next-generation modular CDSS that supports clinicians in CUP workflows. It predicts tumor origin for mutation data using a deep neural network, recommends further diagnostics using NICE-based RAG-LLM, and suggests therapies based on ASCO guidelines, also using a RAG-LLM, all within minutes. Once clinically validated and deployed, CUP Navigator serves as a valuable tool for navigating CUP challenges to assist oncologists in saving many lives in clinical workflows in the future to come. I would like to give a huge thank you to my mentor Solomon for assisting me throughout this project, the Open Bio team for giving me this opportunity, and you, the audience, for taking the time to listen to it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, next up, Catherine will be presenting the impact of abortion restrictions on maternal mortality, evidence from the United States. Whenever you're ready, Catherine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Catherine Huang. I'm from Garnet Valley High School in Pennsylvania, and with my mentor, Katarina Roman from the Department of Political Science at UC San Diego, we investigated the impact of maternal states. While reproductive rights are recognized globally as part of fundamental human rights, abortion access in the US remains deeply contested. In 2022, the Dobbs v. Jackson decision overturned Roe v. Wade, shifting abortion policy entirely to the states. This created a patchwork of laws from highly protective to near total bans with potential consequences for maternal health. Maternal mortality in the US is already notably higher than in most high-income countries, and prior research suggests that abortion bans may increase maternal mortality by forcing higher-risk pregnancies to term. But US-specific empirical evidence remains limited. We wanted to fill in a bit of this literature gap, so our research question asks, how do restrictive abortion laws affect maternal mortality? Initially, we aimed to focus on 2023, the first full year following Dobbs, but we faced challenges obtaining consistent, reliable data. We then shifted to 2021, the year prior to Roe's overturning, and using publicly available state-level data from 2018 through 2022, along with 2022 data generously shared by Masha, a colleague of my mentors, we conducted a quantitative, comparative, observational ecological study. Abortion policy restrictiveness was classified using Guttmacher Institute data, both as a binary and on a condensed 5-point scale. Our measures of maternal mortality were the MMR, the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 women of reproductive age, so ages 15 through 44, and the MM ratio, which is the number of maternal deaths per 100,000 live births. We hypothesized that the MMR would increase when states implemented abortion restrictions or bans, while the MM ratio would remain stable. From there, we ran two main statistical models, a difference in differences model using the binary abortion regulation variable and a two-way fixed effects model using our 5-point scale. Upon completion, we found that our results didn't fully align with our hypotheses. So for the maternal mortality rate, both models actually showed negative coefficients, as you can see in Table 1 or in the visual graphical representation that is Figure 3, meaning that rates went down slightly when abortion policies became more restrictive. In the DID model, this relationship was marginally significant at about the 10% level and translated to roughly one fewer maternal death per 200,000 women of reproductive age when a increased abortion restrictiveness. I used them, the results weren't statistically significant. This suggests that, at least in our study period, there wasn't strong enough evidence that changes in abortion policy were associated with shifts in the ratio of maternal deaths to live births, though we can't rule out the possibility of an effect emerging over a longer time frame or with better data. So why might have we found this unexpected pattern? One major issue is data resolution. We only had annual maternal mortality numbers by state, but abortion laws can change within weeks or even days. That means our treatment coding may not line up with when policies were actually in effect. So for example, if a state passed a ban in December, we counted the whole year as restricted, even though most of it wasn't. In conclusion, while our findings didn't fully align with our initial hypothesis, they underscore a critical challenge in this area of research. Without timely, high-quality, and state-specific maternal mortality data, we can't fully understand the health consequences of shifting abortion laws. This is especially urgent given the rapid and uneven policy changes after Dobbs. Future studies should use more granular data, ideally monthly or quarterly, and account for the exact timing of policy implementation to better capture short-term effects. Expanding the analysis to include measures like prenatal care access, emergency obstetric services, and demographic breakdowns would also help reveal the full scope of the impact. Lastly, I would like to thank Katarina for being such an amazing mentor. I love you so much. Masha for sharing her data and insight with us, and SRI for giving me this wonderful opportunity and guiding me into the world of research. And thank you all for listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Catherine. Alrighty, next up, before the break, we have Mahi presenting Invisible Impact, Plastic's Role in the Marine Carbon Cycle. Take it away.
Hi, my name is Mahi Veermachineni, and I'm a rising sophomore at Enloe High School. My literature review is on the biogeochemical influences of plastic on the marine carbon cycle. Plastic accumulation in the ocean is increasing at an alarming rate every year, with approximately 200 million metric tons of plastic in 2025 and 11 million metric tons entering the oceans each year. The presence of plastic in the ocean is widely known to cause many adverse effects, including entanglement and ingestion by animals and the release of toxic additives. However, with the ocean being one of the largest carbon cycles on the planet, plastic's effects on the ocean carbon cycle are surprisingly under-researched. The marine carbon cycle is regulated by many processes, including carbon sequestration, the long-term burial and storage of carbon in ocean sediments, remineralization, the utilization and degradation of carbon in the ocean, and CO2 fixation, the uptake and conversion of dissolved CO2 from the atmosphere. This review compiles and synthesizes plastic's biogeochemical impacts on these key processes within the marine carbon cycle. My mentor and I conducted a synthetic review following PRISMA guidelines. Google Scholar and PubMed were used as the main databases, with 148 records identified initially. After abstract screening, 17 records were deemed relevant, of which one was removed during full-text screening. 11 records were utilized in this review. Based on current findings, plastic affects the marine carbon cycle in three main ways. First, particle flux. The vertical export of particulate carbon to the ocean floor is known to contribute to long-term carbon storage via carbon sequestration. Plastic itself is 80% of carbon by weight, and while most plastics are buoyant, the sinking of plastic was found to occur when aggregated with biogenic matter, marine gels, and zooplankton fecal pellets. Aggregation with zooplankton pellets occurs when zooplankton ingest and excrete plastic. Zooplankton ingestion of plastic not only assists with the sinking of plastic, it plays a dual role in contributing to carbon cycling. As zooplankton graze on plastic, the amount of phytoplankton grazed on decreases, so a greater amount of phytoplankton will become sinking detritus. In areas with high macronutrients, this sinking detritus can contribute to the vertical flux of carbon, and in areas with low macronutrients, detritus is more likely to be remineralized, and the nutrients, including carbon, would be trapped at the surface. Second, leaching of DOC. Plastic is known to leach dissolved organic matter, including dissolved organic carbon or DOC and other leachates during the degradation process, which is accelerated by solar irradiation and warm temperatures. Some DOC is recalcitrant or difficult to be degraded and has the potential to sink to the ocean floor. However, up to 85% of DOC leachate is shown to be labile or highly bioavailable. Many studies show that utilization or remineralization of this DOC by microorganisms increases their growth and metabolic activity. Increased metabolic activity can alter CO2 exchange, depending on the type of organism. For example, increased autotrophic activity is shown to decrease CO2 levels, while heterotrophs are shown to release CO2 back into the ocean. DOC leachate also contributes to the formation of biofilms on plastic. In combination with biologically produced extracellular polymeric substances, or EPS, and other characteristics of plastic, increased growth of these microbial communities on plastic also alters this CO2 exchange. Finally, the presence of plastic is shown to decrease the photosynthetic ability of organisms like foraminifera and diatoms. Reduction of photosynthetic activity would result in reduced CO2 fixation. However, the effects of reduced photosynthesis can't be entirely generalized. For example, foraminifera are known for producing carbonate, which has the ability to be sequestered, while diatoms help with the assimilation and export of carbon. These processes may also be jeopardized by reduced photosynthetic activity. Based on the findings consolidated in this review, plastic is shown to have a significant impact on many aspects of marine carbon cycling, which can be seen in the figure. From the sinking of plastic itself to its effects on carbon utilization and synthesis in marine organisms, plastic shapes many aspects of the carbon pump, some of which are still unknown. The studies reviewed offered limited insight on the exact means by which plastic biogeochemically influences critical pathways of the marine carbon cycle. Future research should aim to uncover the specific mechanisms by which plastic affects the marine carbon cycle and its key processes. A deeper understanding of these effects may affect future policies and cleanup initiatives. In addition, it may also provide insight into how plastic affects the global carbon cycle and in extension climate change. I would like to thank my mentor, Dr. Helver, for all her support and patience, and the Harvard SRI staff for organizing this amazing opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mahi. Wonderful. So with that, we are at our break. And the break is scheduled from, I believe, 1:30 to 1:35. So we're a little ahead of schedule. It's 1:25 right now. We can take a 10-minute break and we can reconvene at 1:35. And at 1:36, we'll have Pavan present. How does that sound to everyone? Okay, wonderful. I'll see you guys all back at 1:35 then.
I want to test out my mic. Can anyone hear me?
Yep, can hear you. Okay, can everyone hear me? Okay. We're gonna start back up now. It's 1:35, and we have first Pavan presenting the integration of diffusion modeling into Langevin molecular dynamics. Whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, my name is Pavan and my project focuses on molecular dynamic simulations, which are tools for studying how proteins move over time. Classical molecular dynamics works by starting with the 3D structure of a protein, calculating the forces on each atom, and then moving the atoms forward in tiny time steps. In this work, we used Langevin dynamics, which adds random collisions with solvent molecules and frictional drag to better mimic real biological conditions. A major challenge in MD is that biologically important motions like binding pocket openings or allosteric signalings are very slow. Simulations get trapped in local energy minima, and limited runtimes means that we miss these transitions, creating a sampling bottleneck that can hinder drug discovery. Existing methods to solve this problem rely on collective variables, which are simplified descriptions of motion but are unusable for uncharacterized proteins. For benchmarking, we used alanine dipeptide, a standard model with two main backbone torsion angles, phi, which is slow and highly autocorrelated, and psi, which changes quickly, along with a third nearly rigid omega dihedral. My research question asked if AI-generated moves can speed up sampling in alanine dipeptide while preserving thermodynamics and kinetics. To answer this, I had two objectives. One, to develop a graph-based diffusion model to suggest realistic moves, and two, to insert them into a sampling loop with a metropolis filter. A metropolis filter is a probabilistic test that accepts or rejects a move based on how it changes the system's total energy, ensuring correct thermodynamic behavior. To train the model, I generated 3 replica trajectories for 0.8 nanoseconds each and extracted dihedral angles, energies, and forces as input features. A diffusion model is a generative AI model that learns to reverse a noise-adding process to generate realistic samples. My model was a graph diffusion transformer, which works directly on the molecular structure. In the bottom left panel, figure 1 shows histograms of 1,000 random proposals for phi and psi, with both being centered at 0, confirming no bias and validating an energy-only metropolis step. Once trained, we inserted it into the hybrid simulation loop, shown in the top middle panel in figure 2. We run classical MD for 2 nanoseconds, pause, let this model propose a move, bias it with the true forces, and then run the metropolis filter. Accepted moves continue the simulation while rejected moves revert to the previous state. We ran 8 replicas of hybrid molecular dynamics and 8 of classical molecular dynamics, each for 80 nanoseconds. In the first panel of results, figures 3 and 4 show that classical simulations fall into 2 speed regimes, fast and slow, and that hybrid simulations produced fast runs in 7 of 8 cases compared to 2 of 8 for classical, which is a 21-fold increase with a statistically significant p-value of 0.041. Within the fast category, figure 5 shows that phi sampling was 147 times faster in hybrid runs than in slow runs, a statistically significant improvement with a p-value of 0.0001. For psi, shown in figure 6, the 1.25 improvement was not significant, which we expected because the classification between fast and slow was based on phi, showing that faster phi sampling does not affect psi. We then verified that kinetics and thermodynamics were preserved. In the bottom panel of results, figures 7 and 8 show that kinetics match between hybrid and classical molecular dynamics and identify the 3 main structural basins. In the top right, figures 9 and 10 show transition rates match within 3% for most cases, with a 10% speed up into basin 3, and equilibrium basin populations are nearly identical. Together, this shows that hybrid's kinetic and thermodynamic behavior is broadly consistent with classical MD, with the added advantage of selectively accelerating the slowest translations. Since this method doesn't require predefined collective variables, it is generalizable to more complex, disease-relevant biomolecules. This approach speeds up slow molecular motions by over 2 orders of magnitude for phi, while keeping equilibrium properties and kinetic values consistent with classical molecular dynamics. I developed a novel enhanced sampling method that integrates a graph-based diffusion model with molecular dynamics, validated it on a standard benchmark, and showed a 21-fold higher chance of fast sampling and a 147 speedup for the slowest motion. In the future, we plan on not only benchmarking on other proteins, but also hybridizing other enhanced sampling techniques. All code and data are posted on GitHub as linked in the poster. I would finally like to acknowledge my mentor and the Harvard SRI staff, as well as the Symposium judges. This research has the potential to greatly impact the field of drug discovery. Thank you for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, and next up we have Hermila presenting simulating the appearance of curved black holes and their shadows. Let me adjust this timer. And whenever you're ready.
All right, okay, thank you so much. Hi everyone, my name is Hermela Belay, and I'm a rising junior at Richard Montgomery High School. Today, I'm excited to share my research on simulating the appearance of curved black holes and their shadows. You know, those mysterious ring-like structures predicted by Einstein's theory of general relativity and famously imaged by the Event Horizon Telescope. For some background, black holes don't emit light, but a region around them is incredibly dynamic. As light passes near a black hole, it bends due to extreme curvature of space-time. If that light originates from a glowing accretion disk, a disk of matter spiraling into the black hole, it can get lensed into a bright ring with a dark area in the center where light is swallowed. That dark region is called the black hole's shadow. Studying this shadow allows us to learn about a black hole's mass, spin, and orientation, and even test the limits of general relativity. My project focuses specifically on curved black holes, which are rotating black holes, and how their shadows change based on spin and viewing angle. I built a simulation tool using the C programming language to model the paths that photons or light particles take near the black hole. One of the hardest parts of this project was solving the equations that govern how photons move toward this curved spacetime. In normal space, light travels in straight lines, but near a black hole, space itself is warped. This disorientation is described by a set of highly nonlinear differential equations known as the geodesic equations. They're difficult to solve, even numerically. Luckily, curved spacetime has a helpful mathematical property called Curtis separability, which allowed me to express the motion in terms of conserved quantities like energy and angular momentum. However, I still needed a robust method to compute these paths accurately, so I used the Runge-Kutta method, a standard technique for solving differential equations. The simulation traces each photon backward from the observer's viewpoint to determine whether it escapes, hits the accretion disk, or gets observed by the black hole. This ray tracing approach lets me reconstruct the full image of a black hole's shadow. To simplify the problem, I assumed a thin, optically thick, and uniformly glowing accretion disk, and I ignored the effects of a cosmology constant. These assumptions allow me to focus on the core physics and generate clean, interpretable images. Once I confirmed that my code was working, I ran my simulation using two different spin values and inclinations. For example, in one case, I simulated a rapidly spinning black hole with a disk rotating the opposite direction, and another I modeled a non-rotating spot-shaped black hole. The results were striking. The spinning black hole's shadow was disoriented off-center due to frame dragging, while the non-spinning shadow was perfectly circular as expected. I also calculated redshift values, which tell you, how the color and brightness of light shift due to gravity and motion. These values were then used to color each pixel, showing the classic crescent-shaped brightening on one side of the disk, caused by Doppler boosting as material moved towards the observer. Finally, I compared my results to published data from more advanced simulations, specifically a 2024 paper by Wang called Black Holes Shadows Illuminated by Thin Accretion Disk in Carré Spacetime. Even though their simulation included additional effects like a small positive cosmology constant and more complex disk physics, the overall structure of the shadow in my images closely matched theirs. This comparison helped validate my results and show that even with a simpler model, the essential physics of black hole imaging can still be captured effectively. One interesting feature in my image as seen in the poster was a thin bright line near the center caused by photons bending around the far side of the disk and being lensed back into view. This wasn't as visible in Wang's results, likely due to their more realistic treatment of opacity and rate of transfer, but it's a real relativistic effect, and seeing it emerge in my simpler model was a strong confirmation that the simulation was working. So why does this matter? As we gather more real black hole images from observatories like the Event Horizon Telescope, having simple and reliable simulations becomes more important. My code provides a lightweight tool that helps researchers and students test ideas about how black holes look from different angles and spins without needing massive computing resources. It can help validate future telescope data, test gravitational theories, or even assist in educational outreach. And as black hole imaging advances, these tools will be essential for interpreting what we see and refining our models of the universe. Finally, as I finish my presentation, but I would like to thank my mentor Andrew Hernando for all of his advice and support. In addition, I would like to thank the Harvard SRI team for this amazing opportunity. Thank you all for listening.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, we have Prisha next, presenting Engineering the Gut Microbiome, Challenges and Opportunities in Overcoming Horizontal Gene Transfer for Therapeutic Gene Editing. And let me adjust the timer. Whenever you're ready.
Hello, fellow SRI colleagues, SRI staff, and esteemed judges. My name is Prisha Nair, and today I'm excited to talk about my project, Engineering the Gut Microbiome, Challenges and Opportunities Presented by Horizontal Gene Transfer for Therapeutic Gene Editing. Let's break this title down. The gut microbiome, a community of trillions of bacteria living in our digestive system. It is both essential for our health and a major challenge for medicine. While it supports immunity and metabolism, it also acts as a reservoir for antimicrobial resistance genes, or AMR genes. These genes can spread rapidly between bacteria through horizontal gene transfer, or HGT. This means that instead of just passing DNA to their offspring like humans do, bacteria can swap genes directly with completely different species, and they do it much faster. That's a huge problem because over 2.8 million AMR infections occur every year in the US alone. And these resistance genes can jump between bacteria in our gut, making infections harder to treat. Finally, let's talk about therapeutic gene editing. Gene editing tools like CRISPR-Cas offer hope. They can delete resistance genes in the lab, and they've been used successfully on bacteria. But in the gut, the challenge is that the microbiome is a dynamic, fast-changing ecosystem. Any edits we make can quickly be undone by HGT, bacteria's natural defenses, or the simple fact that mobile genetic elements like plasmids, phages, and integrons are constantly shuffling DNA around. To better understand how to overcome these challenges, I conducted a systematic literature review. Directing your attention to the methods box, I searched PubMed for peer-reviewed studies from 2015 to 2025, focusing on bacterial systems in vitro, in vivo, and in some plant or invertebrate models if they're related to bacterial editing. Out of 159 initial studies, I narrowed it down to 62 that directly address tools and challenges in microbiome gene editing. This gave me a broad but focused view of the state of the field. Directing your attention to the eukaryotic versus prokaryotic gene transfer box, a big insight came from comparing bacteria to human cells. In eukaryotic cells like ours, DNA is passed down through cell division, vertical inheritance. So gene editing changes tend to be stable and long-lasting. But bacteria evolve at lightning speed because of HGT. For example, newborns' gut microbiomes had already peaked in resistance by just 1 month of age before reducing to a stable amount. This makes bacterial editing far more unpredictable. Now going towards the dynamic genetic editing exchange box, I found that HGT doesn't just spread resistance genes. It also moves violence factors and metabolic pathways, among other genes. For example, plasmids carry genes that let bacteria survive certain antibiotics, while integrons capture and restore entire multiple types of genes for virulence and resistance. Additionally, phages, viruses that infect bacteria, can trigger bacterial turnover and even interfere with CRISPR editing. And biofilms, protective bacterial layers, can shield communities from both antibiotics and gene editing tools. Now going towards the bacterial editing challenges box. In short, the gut environment is stacked against stable editing. Edits can be outcompeted in days. Some strains block CRISPR entirely with anti-CRISPR proteins or by chemically modifying their DNA. Even when edits work, they might disrupt the central bacterial functions, causing ecological imbalances and unintended consequences. Let's look at the solutions that I found through my research. Despite these challenges, recent research offers several promising solutions. Phage-based delivery systems are a standout example and one that's commonly used. In one study, an engineered lambda phage carried a deactivated Cas9 or dCas9 was able to precisely edit gut bacteria without killing them, preserving community stability. Additionally, conjunctive plasmids that move between bacteria, have also been redesigned for high efficiency. The evolved plasmid EBTP114 delivered CRISPR to over 99.9% of gut commusols while targeting the pathogen Citrobacter rodentium. Additionally, native CRISPR systems from bacteria have been repurposed to avoid triggering bacterial defenses and used for internal genetic editing. These types of studies are using existing gut processes in the gut to amplify gene editing. Even ecological strategies like exploring nutrient dependencies, for instance, beta-glucoids to give certain bacteria a competitive advantage, can be an alternative to normalized CRISPR editing, although they are less precise than molecular tools. The takeaway is that we can't just fight microbial evolution, we need to work with it. The future lies in designing tools that anticipate gene transfer and integrate into bacterial networks and preserve ecological balance. If we succeed, gene editing could move far beyond treating infections. It could tackle chronic diseases, metabolic disorders, and even conditions like neurodegeneration, making the path to solving genetic disorders much faster and defeating AMR resistance easier. Before we end, I want to give a huge thanks to my mentor, Smriti Mittal, and all the SRI staff and my fellow SRI colleagues for all their help and support through this program. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, a comparative review of shielding materials for deep space exploration presented by Dia. Whenever you're ready, Dia.
Hello everyone, my name is Dia Condor, and today I'm here to discuss the comparative review of shielding materials for deep space exploration. As space exploration expands further than ever before, especially with new discoveries on Mars, astronauts face one of their greatest challenges: radiation. Without Earth's magnetic field for protection, deep space missions are constantly bombarded by two main sources: galactic cosmic rays, or GCRs, and solar particle events, or SPEs. GCRs are made up of mostly high-energy protons and helium nuclei, with a small but dangerous portion of heavy ions like iron. These particles can carry energies high enough to pass through thick layers of metal. SPEs, on the other hand, are bursts of energetic protons from solar flares, which can spike radiation levels suddenly. Both can damage DNA, increase cancer risk, harm the nervous system, and even accelerate heart disease. To study how different materials perform as shields, I reviewed research published between 2000 and 2025 from trusted databases like NASA's Technical Report Server, Science Direct, PubMed, and the Astrophysics Data System. I focused on studies that provided information regarding how much radiation dose is reduced for each material under realistic deep space conditions. These included both experimental accelerated tests and computer models such as NASA's HZETRN and CERN's GEANT-4, which simulate how radiation interacts with spacecraft materials. I also looked at how materials hold up over time when exposed to space radiation, since durability is just as important as protection. Right now, most spacecraft rely on aluminum for their structure and shielding. Aluminum is strong and light compared to other metals, but it's not great for radiation protection. Its relatively high atomic number means it's more likely to cause a problem called nuclear fragmentation, where incoming particles break apart on impact, creating harmful secondary radiation like neutrons that can penetrate deep into spacecraft. Moreover, adding more aluminum doesn't always help. In fact, beyond a certain thickness, it can make the radiation dose worse, as shown in Figure 2. That's why researchers are considering alternatives, such as hydrogen-rich materials, especially polyethylene. Hydrogen atoms are light and far less likely to cause nuclear fragmentation, which means fewer secondary particles are produced. Tests at particle accelerators and computer models both show that polyethylene blocks more radiation per unit mass than aluminum, especially against heavy ions. Variants like high-density polyethylene, or HDPE, combine that radiation shielding power with better toughness and wear resistance, making them more useful for spacecraft parts, shown in Figure 1. But the most exciting developments are emerging composites like boron nitrate nanotube, or BNNT hybrids. BNNTs are incredibly strong and lightweight. When combined with HDPE, you get a material that not only blocks radiation extremely well, but can also handle structural loads. Simulations show BNNT HDPE composites could reduce radiation doses up to 72 times more effective than aluminum of the same mass, and about 4 times better than HDPE alone. The boron in BNNT also captures neutrons, further improving protection. Therefore, given these trade-offs shown in Table 1, the best approach for future missions will likely be hybrid shielding, using metals like aluminum for structure, but adding hydrogen-rich layers where radiation is highest, such as crew quarters. Polyethylene can be used in spacecraft interiors and even in space suits, while B and NT composites could one day replace some structural parts entirely, giving both strength and radiation protection. To keep astronauts safe while keeping spacecraft light, we need to think beyond a single perfect shield. We must balance radiation protection, weight, mechanical strength, and integration into the spacecraft systems. With more research, especially into B&T composites, we can create spacecraft that protect crews for months or even years in deep space. I'd like to thank my mentor, Lauren Cortman, for her guidance and invaluable insights throughout this project. I'm also grateful to the Harvard SRI staff for their support and for giving me the chance to work on such a meaningful research topic. Thank you.
Thanks, Tia. Alrighty, next up, geospatial analysis of heat vulnerability across vulnerability, presented by Jenny. Whenever you're ready.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Ayala and I am a rising sophomore at Alexander Hamilton High School in California. My research surrounded heat vulnerability across Southern California. So as a brief overview, my project examined how environmental and socioeconomic factors intersect to influence the risk of heat-related illnesses in Los Angeles County. Extreme heat is a growing public health concern, especially in sun-intense urban areas like LA, where concrete surfaces, low vegetation, and dense infrastructure trap heat. Populations with limited access to cooling resources, shade, or sun protection are especially vulnerable. My goal was to identify the communities facing the greatest combined environmental and social risk so that policymakers and healthcare providers can target interventions more effectively. To do this, I used multiple datasets from the CDC, EPA, US Census Bureau, and other public health agencies covering the years 2016 to 2023. I analyzed the identified heat-related emergency room visit data, UV index and radiation values, and demographic indicators like poverty rates, minority population percentages, and the proportion of residents working in outdoor labor. I also incorporated the Environmental Public Health Tracking Heat and Health Tracker data, which provides historical heat burden information. All these datasets were mapped using ArcGIS, which stands for Geographic Information System. The software allows you to combine data with location information to create maps. This way, patterns and relationships, like which neighborhoods have both higher poverty rates and high emergency room visits due to heat, become much more visible than they would be in a spreadsheet. My results are shown in 3 maps on the poster. The first map, the Socio-Demographic Vulnerability Index, highlights neighborhoods with higher poverty, larger minority populations, and greater rates of outdoor work. These appear in darker green. The second map shows the historical heat burden percentile, where darker blue areas indicate a history of more frequent or severe heat-related health impacts. The third map displays heat-related emergency room visits from May to September 2023, where darker red areas indicate neighborhoods with more recorded ER visits due to extreme heat. Comparing these maps, I found that many of the highest risk neighborhoods appeared in all 3 indicators, meaning these areas face persistent and overlapping challenges. In Los Angeles County, these high vulnerability zones often include low-income communities with limited access to shade, air conditioning, and affordable sunscreen, as well as high concentrations of outdoor workers in construction, landscaping, and similar sectors. Structural inequities such as poverty, lack of sun protection resources, and jobs requiring long hours in direct sunlight play a major role in driving heat-related health risks. These findings underscore the need for targeted public health strategies, such as distributing sun protection products, expanding cooling infrastructure, and running tailored heat safety education campaigns in these areas. Ultimately, this research highlights the power of combining environmental and demographic data to address public health challenges. By identifying the neighborhoods most at risk, decision makers can focus resources where they are needed most, helping to prevent heat-related illnesses and build resilience in the face of rising temperatures. My hope is that studies like this can guide data-driven interventions and support communities that have historically been overlooked in climate and health planning. Finally, I would like to thank my mentor and the SRI staff for this amazing opportunity to participate in this program. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jenny. Okay, next up we have Sahasra presenting Bridging the Divide, Healthcare Gender Gaps in General Medicine, Research and Cardiovascular Care. Take it away.
Bob, age 50, arrived at the ER with acute chest pain after losing consciousness. He was rapidly triaged, diagnosed with a myocardial infarction, and treated, and he walked out alive. Cindy, age 47, came into her physician with a sense of impending doom, fatigue, and chest heaviness. Her symptoms were pathologized as anxiety and menopause, and she was discharged. That night, while cooking dinner, she died suddenly from a massive myocardial infarction. 2 lives, 2 heart attacks, one saved and one lost. Good afternoon. My name is Sahasra Vasredi, and alongside my mentor, Samantha Reme, we conducted a literature review investigating gender stratified differences in prevalence, progression, and treatment while identifying epistemic research gaps and examining structural, cultural, and institutional drivers of health inequality. A systematic review of PubMed and Google Scholar was performed using search terms such as medical gender disparities, gender and cardiovascular disease, gender in research, and gender social determinants of health. We examined peer-reviewed studies from the past 10 to 15 years reporting odds ratio, prevalence, or statistically significant findings on female health outcomes across the life course and socio-structural contexts, excluding male-only, non-disaggregated, animal, and redundant studies. Cindy's stories reflects a self-perpetuating cycle of epistemic justice, where women's health experiences are systematically undervalued as sources of medical knowledge. Underrepresentation research perpetuates androcentric medical models. This contributes to a cumulative disadvantage. Each delay or misdiagnosis compounds to the next, producing health inequities that persist across the lifetime. That knowledge deficit shapes provider cognition, or in other words, the medical professional's understanding. So women's symptoms are pathologized as psychological or emotional, leading to iatrogenic delays in diagnosis and intervention. These delays worsen morbidity and mortality, which then erodes trust and healthcare-seeking behavior among women, decreasing their research representation further and thus continuing the cycle. From infancy, girls in many regions face structural neglect through malnutrition, incomplete immunization, and gendered bodily regulations, such as female genital cutting. In adolescence, gendered socialization and surveillance lead to an 83% decline in physical activity and increased exposure to gender-based violence. In adulthood, reproductive governance shapes access to maternal care and mortality. By midlife, the cumulative impact of caregiving burdens and occupational gender harassment and stress increases allostatic load and stress-related chronic illness. By late life, the embodied effects of these inequities manifest as higher rates of cardiovascular disease, disability, and depression. Outcomes are what sociologists call weathering, the cumulative psychological wear from sustained social adversity across decades. From a CDC study of 1.7 million U.S. adults, women were 26% more likely to delay care. It's an odds ratio categorical expression of, or OR of 1.26, 29% more likely to forego care due to cost with an OR of 1.29, and 24% more likely to skip medications, OR 1.24, despite lower uninsurance rates. Cardiovascular outcomes show women have higher in-hospitality mortality after a myocardial infarction, 16% versus 11%, and lower 5-year survival, 42% versus 58%, statistically significant with a p-value of less than 0.001. Globally, a 0.1 rise in the gender inequality index shortens life expectancy by 0.48 years. In low and middle income countries, gender inequality accounts for 80% of neonatal deaths. Healthcare's gender division of labor also persists. Women dominate nursing and midwifery, but hold only 15% of U.S. medical school dean roles due to the glass ceiling effect. When women lead, patient outcomes improve. Female physicians raise disability evaluation accuracy for female patients by 5.2%. And in India, empowered community health workers increase postnatal visits by 21.7% and respectful care scores by 8.4%. Closing cardiovascular care gaps could restore 1.6 million healthy life years and generate $28 billion in the U.S. economy by 2040. The solutions that need to be integrated at societal and institution level are first, institutionalize gender as a core variable in all biomedical research, two, mandate bias interruption protocols in institutions and diagnosis, and last but not least, increase women's representation in clinical leadership to shift from androcentric to inclusive models of care. Cindy's story should have ended like Bob's, with life, not loss. These disparities are socially constructed, institutionally perpetuated, and therefore structurally reversible. Breaking the cycle requires intervention at every stage of a woman's life, from birth to late life, but the cost of inaction will always be counted in lives lost. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, and next up, root exudates of sorghum bicolor. How do exudates modulate microbiome composition under high salinity? Presented by Ryan Yao. Take it away, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Yao, and my project is about how the exudates of sorghum bicolor modulate microbiome composition under high salinity. So why is this important? Well, global food demand is rising and more people are hungry than ever. But poor land use and increasing climate change has increased agricultural challenges, specifically soil salinization. Salt-tolerant plants offer a promising solution to this problem by improving soil quality through legacy effects, as well as hosting beneficial microbiota that have been shown to reduce stress as well as improve growth under these conditions. The composition of these microbiomes is modulated by root exudates under stress, which are compounds secreted by plant roots into the surrounding soil to select for specific bacteria. Our study focuses on sorghum bicolor because it's the fifth most important cereal globally, as well as being salt tolerant. We aim to identify key root exudates of sorghum bicolor and link these exudates to mechanisms through analyzing microbial pathways. This provides insights for improved pesticides in the future, as well as predicting exudates in similar crops. So our data was gathered from Zhang and others 2021, and briefly they collected soil samples from 3 plants under saline conditions, namely sorghum bicolor. They collected 3 sets of 4 samples, one from the bulk soil, the rhizosphere, the rhizoplane, and the endosphere. Then we took their OTU and ASV tables from Kita and imported them into R and transformed them into phyloseq objects to analyze. The ASV table was processed with PyCrust-2 to predict microbial pathways, and then diversity was analyzed using alpha diversity, principal coordinate analysis, as well as Permanova to assess how community structure is driven. Then core taxa was analyzed at the class level, and pathways were analyzed comparing the rhizosphere to the endosphere using EdgeR for differential expression. Finally, an exudative pathway network was created by linking them using the KEGG database, and then linkage scores were quantified using pathway distance as well as enzyme diversity in the calculation. Figure 1 reveals our principal coordinate analysis, where grouping patterns were consistent across all 3 samples, namely the bulk soil and the rhizosphere grouped together, while the endosphere and rhizosphere samples grouped together. Permanova revealed that grouping was driven by residual factors, not soil compartments, with the R-squared of 0.7. Environmental conditions are more influential in this case than plant and compartment-specific effects. This suggests that plants select microbiota based on function rather than taxonomy under certain environmental stresses. Figure 2 shows that our 3 most common taxa are beta proteobacteria, alpha proteobacteria, and bacilli under stress. While in the rhizosphere specifically, beta and alpha gamma proteobacteria were upregulated along with bacilli, suggesting selection by root exudates. Figure 3 demonstrates the EdgeR results with the phosphotransferase system being upregulated, which is linked to sugar and carbon metabolism and matches the enrichment of proteobacteria. Thymine metabolism is also upregulated, which supports microbial stress adaptation with vitamin synthesis. Lipopolysaccharide biosynthesis and nitrotoluene degradation are both downregulated, however, suggesting a shift away from cell wall investments and xenobiotic degradation in response to stress because they need to invest their resources elsewhere. Finally, the most important root exudates with the highest linkage scores were flavonoid 3' 5' hydroxylase, which modifies flavonoid structures in the rhizosphere and enhances PTS by increasing carbon diversity. Anthocyanin reductase, which produces flavin-3-ols and supports microbial vitamin synthesis under stress, and glutanoid transferase and L-phenylalanine, which both feed into flavonoid biosynthesis as well as detoxifying reactive flavonoids. Overall, the key bacterial classes enriched in the rhizosphere were alpha, beta, and gamma proteobacteria, along with bacilli, which were selected for by root exudates of sorghum bicolor. Significant microbial pathways all favored nutrient uptake as well as vitamin production, with key exudates shaping the rhizosphere chemistry and promoting PTS as well as thymine pathways in response to stress. Overall, my research offers insight into the salt-tolerant mechanisms of sorghum bicolor, and these mechanisms may be shared or adapted to similar cereal crops. For this reason, future research should study similar crops in order to confirm results, as well as conduct experiments at different conduct the experiment at different growth stages, not just the mature growth stage, to provide a comprehensive picture of the salt-tolerant mechanism throughout the plant's lifetime. Using this information we should inform targeted pesticides in the future that can provide better solutions to salt resistance throughout the world and allow for a solution to this pressing issue. I want to thank my mentor Alexia Fabiani for her help throughout the 8 weeks that I worked on this, as well as the SRA staff for supporting me throughout the journey. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Ryan. And next up, we have Venkata presenting personalizing pharmacological treatments for chronic myeloid leukemia with a hybrid quantum classical computing stack. Whenever you're ready.
In medicine, we're often told that one size doesn't fit all, yet for many complex diseases, that's still our starting point. This is especially true for cancer, and specifically a blood cancer called chronic myeloid leukemia, or CML. For CML, we have a whole keyring of amazing life-saving drugs called tyrosine kinase inhibitors. But here's the problem. Every patient's cancer is like a slightly different lock. Using the wrong key for this lock doesn't just fail to open it, it can jam it, causing serious side effects like organ damage or heart problems. Our goal isn't just to find a key that works, it's to find the perfect key for each individual lock. In the case of targeted treatment, the ideal key would have the highest binding score, allowing for effectiveness at low dosages and minimal side effects. So how do we find this perfect key? That's where me and my professor, my mentor, Mr. Collins Kaponsky, proposed a new kind of blueprint, a hybrid quantum classical pipeline. You could see the entire 5-step process laid as a flowchart in Figure 3. First, we build a 3D model of the patient's unique cancer protein, the lock in our analogy. Figure 2 shows the 3D structure of this protein with the sequence folded in AlphaFold 2, and that's when the real innovation begins. Finding how a drug fits into a protein is an incredibly complex puzzle. A normal computer has to try every single position and combination one by one. It's like trying to pick a lock by trying millions of combinations. But a quantum computer can be a master locksmith. But before a quantum locksmith can pick the lock, we first need to give it a blueprint, as seen in step 2 of the flowchart. We turn key connection points called pharmacophores on the ligand and protein into a graph, which works as a map of their molecular interactions. The final map is the binding interaction graph, which lays out all potential interaction pairs, which are basically tiny molecular handshakes, each with a different strength. This transforms our biological problem into a mathematical one, as shown in step 3. The goal is to find the best possible combination of these handshakes, or a click, where every connection is physically compatible with each other. Because every handshake has a strength, we aren't just looking for any fit, we're looking for the maximum weighted click. This is the single combination that creates the most stable, powerful bond, the perfect configuration that unlocks the protein. Now, the maximum weighted click problem is an incredibly hard problem even for the best supercomputers, which is why we use a quantum approximate optimization algorithm, which produces approximate solutions for combinatorial optimization problems and can be seen within step 4 within the flowchart. Instead of trying one combination at a time, it can essentially feel the small pins in the lock all at once. It explores all possible docking positions simultaneously and identifies the single most stable configuration, the strength of which correlates to a binding score, a direct measure of the drug's potency. But the most powerful key isn't always the best one. What if it's also toxic? That's where step 5 of our flowchart comes in. After the quantum step, we run each drug through a safety check by getting each ligand's ADMET profile on a classical computer. ADMET, which stands for absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and toxicity, is like a background check for our keys. It asks critical questions like, can this drug cross into the brain and cause neurological side effects? Does it have a risk of causing heart problems? Will it dangerously interfere with other common medications? And so on and so forth. And by combining the power score from the quantum algorithm with the safety score from the classical one, our pipeline doesn't just find the strongest key, it finds the safest, most effective key for this patient. We tested this pipeline on 8 known chronic myeloid leukemia drugs. If you look on the results table on the right, you can see exactly what we found. We discovered something fascinating. A drug called befetinib had the highest binding score of roughly 1.1, making it the most potent. But in our safety check, it failed. The other columns flagged it as high risk. However, another drug, nilotinib, had a nearly identical power score of 1.06, but passed our safety checks with flying colors. It was predicted to be more powerful and more safe, proving our pipeline doesn't just find the strongest drug, it finds the smartest one. Now, this research is proof of concept. Right now, we're limited by today's early stage quantum computers, but what I've presented today shows a viable path forward. As quantum hardware only continues to improve, this method of creating personalized blueprint could revolutionize how we choose treatment for countless diseases. It's time we stop trying to fit one key into a million different locks. With a data-driven approach that combines the best of quantum and classical computing, we can start crafting the perfect key for every single patient. Thank you. And I'd like to thank my mentor, Mr. Colin Skapansky, and the SRI staff for helping me out throughout this program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, next up we have Ibrahim presenting computational dissection of RNA conformational landscapes, mutational drivers of immunogenic secondary structures in antiphospholipid syndrome. Whenever you're ready, Ibrahim.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, all right. So hello everyone. My name is Ibrahim Khalid Tahir, and I'm excited to present to you guys my work titled The Computational Dissection of RNA Conformational Landscapes, Mutational Drivers of Immunogenic Structures in Antiphospholipid Syndrome. So I would recommend you guys read through the poster to gain a better look of the exact details of that are going to be presented. But my research tackles a major puzzle in medicine that's been troubling scientists and researchers for decades. So exactly what starts the immune diseases, pathways, autoimmune diseases, antiphospholipid syndrome, for example. This research bridges the computational biology and energy strategies to address a critical gap in understanding immune disorders known as antiphospholipid syndrome, or APS. APS is a chronic thrombophilic disease threatened by dangerous blood clots, strokes, and recurrent pregnancy loss. Central to the process are antiphospholipid antibodies, or APLs for short, which target a plasma protein known as beta-2 glycoprotein. Normally, beta-2 glycoprotein circulates in a sort of closed conformation, but when it binds to negatively charged surface, like apoptotic cells, for example, it can then open up to reveal immunogenic site known as a cryptic epitope. Exposed regions are perfect docking sites for APLs, and once bound, they can form immunogenic complexes that are taken by cells and recognized by pattern recognition receptors, or PRRs for short, sorry, especially like TLR7, 8, and 9, which are relevant in this example. So while this interaction is well known, what has never been fully explored in previous research before is the genetic mutations, is rather these genetic a damage-associated molecular pattern and trigger the inflammatory signaling. The receptors involved, which are TLR7, 8, and 9, are incredibly sensitive to the certain structural motifs and the long double-stranded stems, like or unusual tertiary folds. To investigate this, I conducted a systematic literature review where we got 47 studies that spanned APS pathogenesis, RNA folding, and computational genomics. But my research just doesn't stop here. From there, I built a conceptual computational framework where I'd like to draw you guys' attention to the main figure 1 as presented here in the poster. So the figure here shows the flow, where we start off with at the left with a defined mutation in the APOC gene. That mutation is then just RNA, which is then analyzed by the 3 computational study, and which are VN-RNA, package, RNA structure, mute. So here, VN-RNA and RNA structure are used for their minimum free energy models, which also provide the probable base pair probabilities that of alternative suboptimal structures. So RNA-mute then stimulates the mutation and calculates the structural dissimilarity score between the wild type and mutant RNA. In the middle of the figure, you guys can see a sort of dot bracket notation and secondary structure diagrams, which showcase how even a single base pair change can turn on an open loop into a rigid stim or unmask an immunogenic sequence of the figure. Those structural changes are opposed to cross-reference with the known PRR binding sites, specifically for TLR. The conceptual model ends with the altered RNA binding beta-2 glycoprotein and APL antibodies, which form a complex that act as a damage-associated molecular pattern. and then subsequently activating the TLRs and triggering the NFKB signaling, and then releasing the cytokines such as TNF alpha and IL-6. What makes this approach powerful is that it moves our APS research from the broad immune effect to the precise molecular triggers. For example, if the altered RNA has an extended double-strand region longer than 30 base pairs, it fits the length profile of the TLR3 recognition. But if it's uridine-rich single-stranded, it's primed for TLR7 and 8 activation. This means that by looking at the structure, not just the sequence, we can predict whether the immune pathway is likely to be activated here. So if validated, this framework could transform the APS diagnostic and treatments. Clinicians could screen for mutations and create high-risk RNA structures, track patients more efficiently, and even design small molecules or antisense oligonucleotides to disrupt harmful RNA-PRR interactions before inflammation ever even begins. This is especially important because current APS treatments are non-specific, treating symptoms rather than the molecular cause. By intervening at the RNA structural level, we could prevent such activation entirely. Of course, this work is still entirely proposed to be in silico. The next steps that are to be experimentally validated by predicting the structures using methods to test for secondary structure probing, and then test their immunogenicity in cells culture models to see if they truly activate TLR7 or 9. If successful, this approach could extend beyond APS to other autoimmune diseases where RNA misrecognition plays a role. In conclusion, APS hinges on the immune recognition of beta-2 acid complexes, but structural changes in the self-RNA from genetic mutations may be a hidden driver. My framework shown in figure 1 links computational analysis with immune receptor biology to uncover the connection. This is a personalized medicine for APS, which offers a new possible diagnostic biomarkers and highly targeted therapeutic strategies. After that, I'd like to, through the acknowledgement section, I'd like
All right, Ibrahim, we're running a little over time. I'm gonna have to stop you there. And next up, we have Breaking the Loop, atorvastatin as a host-directed inhibitor of CXCL10 mediated inflammation in chronic alpha-viral arthritis, presented by Ishani. Whenever you're ready, Ishani.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ishani Malugu, and I'm really excited to share my research with you today. This project is a literature review investigating whether atorvastatin can reduce CXCL10-driven inflammation in chronic alpha-viral arthritis. We can begin by looking at section 1 at the top left of the poster, where I've outlined the background behind this research. Alpha viruses like chikungunya virus, also known as CHIKV and Ross River virus, are mosquito-borne RNA viruses that are spreading faster than ever due to climate change and increased globalization. One of the most serious long-term consequences of alpha-viral infection is chronic arthritis, which can persist for months or even years after the initial infection resolves. For many patients, this means long-term joint pain, stiffness, and fatigue, sometimes to the point of even being disabling. Currently, there is no specific treatment for this chronic inflammatory state. So that's where this project comes in. My mentor and I wanted to investigate whether a well-known and widely available drug, atorvastatin, commonly used to lower cholesterol, could be repurposed to treat alpha-viral-induced arthritis. Moving to section 2, you'll see the core of the clinical problem, as we've previously mentioned. There is no targeted therapy for this persistent joint inflammation. Current treatments don't address the molecular causes of ongoing inflammation. Many of them also carry serious risks due to immune suppression. So the question is, what exactly does cause the prolonged inflammation? This leads us to section 3. A chemokine called CXCL10 plays a powerful role in the immune system by attracting T cells and natural killer cells to infected tissues. This process is briefly illustrated in section 2, where CXCL10, the purple dots, are recruiting the green T cells to joint tissue. However, in the case of alpha-viral infection, CXCL10 becomes part of a dangerous feedback loop that sustains inflammation even when the virus is no longer present. And here's how it works. When the body detects viral RNA, it releases interferon gamma, also known as IFN gamma. This activates a transcription factor called STAT1, which increases the production of CXCL10. Once CXCL10 is secreted, it recruits T cells and natural killer cells to the joint. These cells in turn release even more IFN gamma, restarting the loop. This self-sustaining cycle drives chronic inflammation in the joint long after the infection ends. This cycle is illustrated in section 3 and figure 2 at the center of the poster. On the left side, you can see how this IFN gamma STAT1 CXCL10 loop becomes self-perpetuating with continuous immune cell recruitment and tissue damage. Now here's where things get interesting. On the right side of figure 2, you can see how atorvastatin disrupts this loop by inhibiting STAT1 and NF-kappa B activation. This reduces CXCL10 production without broadly suppressing immunity, making it a precise host-directed approach. But I didn't stop at the molecular level. As shown in section 5, I wanted to explore whether this mechanism might already be visible at the population level. To do that, I conducted a preliminary epidemiological comparison. I gathered regional estimates of chronic chickpea burden and cross-referenced them with average statin usage. The goal was basically to see if regions with higher statin use had fewer chronic chickpea cases. What we see in Table 1 is a reverse pattern. Europe, for example, has the highest statin use and essentially no chronic chickpea cases. Meanwhile, sub-Saharan Africa, with very low statin use, has the highest burden. There are, of course, some outliers like the MENA region, likely due to healthcare disparities or differences in diagnostic access. Even though that this is just a qualitative comparison, the trend lends support to the idea that atorvastatin, possibly through CXCL10 inhibition, could protect against the progression to chronic disease. Ultimately, this project is more than about just one drug. It's about rethinking how we treat chronic post-viral inflammation. My hope is just that this research sparks further investigation into atorvastatin and other host-directed approaches so that chronic alpha-viral arthritis doesn't have to remain a lifelong burden. I'd like to thank my mentor for her unwavering guidance and OpenBio for this amazing opportunity. Thank you all so much for listening.
Thanks, Shani. Next up, we have Ikra presenting craniofacial morphology and its applications in anthropological forensic identification, a systematic review.
Hi everyone, my name is Ikra Nadeem, and today I'll be discussing my research on the use of craniofacial morphology, particularly the mandible, nasal, and orbital structures, for identification in forensic casework. For a background, the goal of this research was to evaluate how these features help estimate biological profiles for deceased individuals. Biological profiles include factors such as sex, age, or ancestry in determining identification when DNA or soft tissue analysis isn't readily available. In many forensic cases, skeletal remains are often the only evidence that is recovered, and accurate results can narrow identification, making this research significant. I conducted a review of articles that dated from 2020 to 2025 to ensure up-to-date methods with the focus on measurement techniques that surrounded craniofacial morphology. Two of the main methods that arose repeatedly were geometric morphometrics and cone beam computed tomography, or CBCT. Geometric morphometrics capture and analyze 3D shapes of bones using precise landmark coordinates of the facial region. And unlike linear measurements, it has complex shape comparisons and accounts for size, position, and orientation. The second method was cone beam computed tomography, or CBCT, which uses a cone-shaped X-ray beam to produce detailed scans. And CBCT provides high-resolution data while exposing the structure to less radiation compared to other methods, allowing for high accuracy results. In terms of results, as you can see in the table provided, the summarized articles show that the mandible has consistently high accuracy in sex estimation, with ramus height, bigonial width, and gonal angle being the most reliable indicators of sex differentiation. Males had larger ramus height and bigonial width compared to females, who often had more obtuse gonal angles. The nasal region is strong for ancestry estimation within population studies. For example, the Diet Kenya, Uyghurs, and Chinese samples have distinct differences in aperture, width, and index of the nasal region. The orbital region was also heavily used for sex estimation, with classification ranging from 70 to 90%, especially with accuracy ratings increasing when combined with nasal traits or by using geometric morphometric methods. The orbital shape is often overlooked, but it is especially used in facial reconstruction. Overall, it can be determined that combined, the craniofacial regions aren't really the best for eliciting a high accuracy with identification. But when combined, these regions can elicit a very high accuracy rating compared to just using a single structure by itself. However, with accuracy, there often are limits. Across the reviewed articles, many of the articles included very small samples, usually consisting of 50 to 100, which isn't very diverse. There are many factors to take into account, which include age, ethnicity, gender, and much more. Forensic casework doesn't always include adult samples ranging from ages 30 to 40. Many children, unfortunately, do end up being deceased, along with elderly that can die through very unknown causes of death. And so, because of this, a larger sample should be used for generalizability and also for universal applicability. Additionally, some limits also include that some features, such as a nasal structure, can easily be influenced by age-related or environmental factors, which doesn't allow for universal applicability. Additionally, machines often require high-quality datasets, which is never usually ensured in forensic cases due to decomposed or damaged remains. In terms of future directions, larger and more diverse samples should be used to improve generalizability, and age and environmental factors should be taken into account for machine learning models. Lastly, artificial intelligence or AI could offer promising results as long as it is used with clear intentions. Models should specifically provide justification for the predictions. Overall, craniofacial morphology is a very valuable tool for forensic identification, especially when DNA or soft tissue analysis isn't readily available. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge the OpenBio SRI staff for providing this amazing opportunity, and also thanking my mentor, Callie Quire, for helping me with this whole review happen. And also, I would like to thank everyone for listening to my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ikra. Okay, next up we have thalamo-prefrontal circuit disruption across neuropsychiatric disorders, a comparative analysis of schizophrenia and ADHD, presented by Abira. Whenever you're ready.
Nearly 1 billion people worldwide are affected by neuropsychiatric disorders, draining families, stealing potential, and costing over $2.5 trillion annually. As the quote on the top of my poster reminds us, you are not your illness, you have an individual story to tell. Hi, my name is Abir Nassif, and my literature review is about the mediodorsal thalamus to prefrontal cortex circuit, or the MD to PFC, which controls attention, working memory, and cognitive control. These functions are disrupted across various psychiatric disorders. However, today I'll be comparing this exact circuit's disruption in both schizophrenia and ADHD. The main takeaway of my review was to show that the challenge in psychiatrics is that current treatments solely focus on symptoms and not the root neural circuits that cause the symptoms themselves. The medial-dorsal thalamus acts as a central hub, gathering signals from across the brain, while the prefrontal cortex then uses those signals and integrates them for decision-making and cognitive flexibility. The connection between them relies on glutamate signaling, which is critical for higher order cognition. I ran a systematic literature review in databases including PubMed, Google Scholars, and LitMaps, using key terms like thalamocortical circuits, schizophrenia, ADHD, the dopamine hypothesis, and glutamate signaling. I prioritized studies over reviews and computational heavy papers, and included brain imaging, genetic data, and validated animal models so I could integrate structural, neurochemical, and behavioral findings into one big comparative analysis and framework. The main pathway disrupted is the MD to PFC circuit, but there are also secondary circuits involved, including the mesolimbic and mesocortical dopamine pathways, and alongside hippocampal connections. These interact constantly, meaning that a disruption in one of the pathways could lead into a cascading effect in the rest. For decades, the dopamine hypothesis has been fundamental to understanding of psychiatrics. In 1963, Arvid Carlsson and his colleagues discovered that antipsychotics work due to the blocking of the D2 dopamine receptors. Today, we know that in schizophrenia, too much of the dopamine in mesolimbic pathways, which include the ventral tegmental to striatal areas, cause untreatable positive symptoms such as hallucinations and delusions, while too little in the mesocortical pathways, which include the ventral tegmental and prefrontal cortex areas, cause cognitive deficits. In ADHD, we know that the issue is a dopamine deficiency in the prefrontal to striatal circuits, which is why stimulants that help treat ADHD increase synaptic dopamine. Structurally, the differences between the conditions are pretty striking. In schizophrenia, there's a permanent damage that approximately 27% neuronal loss and 17% volume loss in the MD, plus a reduced connectivity to the prefrontal cortex. These changes typically emerge in late adolescence. In ADHD, the changes are milder and often normalize with development, which include effects like cortical thinning, right hemisphere effects, and reduced medial-dorsal thalamus to prefrontal cortex connectivity. For schizophrenia, medications target dopamine but leave glutamate and cognitive symptoms untreated. For ADHD, medications boost dopamine but don't fully restore the glutamate balance. Thus why future medications should solely focus on neural circuit targeted treatments. This for schizophrenia means that including NMDA receptor modulators, which could restore glutamate functions. And for ADHD, the best approaches would improve both glutamate and dopamine together. In conclusion, both disorders disrupt the same circuit, but for different reasons. Glutamate hypofunction in schizophrenia and dopamine deficiency in ADHD. Designing treatments for the core neural circuits and not just the symptoms of these neuropsychiatric disorders is key to transforming suffering into solutions. Additionally, this project would not have been possible without the talent and inspiration of my mentor, Kelly Runyon at Virginia Tech School of Neuroscience. And thank you to the Harvard SRI staff for this amazing opportunity. Additionally, thank you to the audience and judges for their time and patience.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And now we have Mohamed presenting characterizing the cooperative binding effect of DNA extensions for programmable folding reconfiguration of self-assembled DNA wireframe nanostructures. Whenever you're
Hello,
ready.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so look at this paper. You can fold it and unfold it. Imagine being able to fold and unfold like a DNA. It is easily like folding a sheet of a paper. This is called DNA origami. Hello, my name is Mohammed, and we are working with DNA origami with my project, a branch of DNA self-assembly that helps in controlling molecules folding mechanism. To control the mechanism dynamics of DNA origami, a crease-handle system shown in figure 1 here in introduction consisting of like a short single-stranded DNA extensions positions along like a folding line, which is called crease handles. With glue strand, which is green one, complementary to both crease handles on either sides of the fold and used like bending. Introducing also a releaser complementary to the glue strand, restoring the unfolding state again. However, most current designs employ only 1 to 3 pairs, which limits the folding angle, precision, and result in discrete probabilistic folding success rate. To overcome this, we worked on the cooperative and spatial binding effects of DNA extensions to enhance programmability by creating 96 designs, starting with our structure designs. We have 2 representative folding types, H1 for rectangular folding and H2 is designed for triangular folding. The structures were designed using KID Nano software. 2 distinctive like binary variables were incorporated. First, we have our pairs system and our crease-handle configuration. For the H1 design, we have like a pair combination like ranged from like 000 to 3 ones, which are like 3 binary digits representing all 8 permutations. For the 3 pair configuration, we have like 64 variation for crease handles, ranging with 6 bits. Were implemented like resulting in 72 H1 design. Besides, like for H2 pair system, it is similar to H1, except for like the crease handle system with 4 bits, resulting in 16 combinations and a total of 24 H2 designs. Starting with our finite element analysis, we have like for pair system, our MSF value is inversely proportional to stability, as shown in figures 3B and C. We deduced that increasing the handles increase the stability, and in D that represents like higher strain energy with more stable design, indicating darker blue, while the opposite for the red, of course. The H1 like 3-pair system design has the best conversions, also depicted in the microscopic screen here in this figure. In figure 4, the data for the H2 system followed by the same trend. However, the H2 system shows more stability over H1 as shown in the microscopic screen and VMD strain rendering energy data. For the crease handle system, shown in figure 5, for the H1-like design, the crease handle configuration was 6 bits. Increasing the total number of crease handles generally enhances stability, as seen in comparison between 00130 and 00120, where the latter was more stable. However, adding a crease handle in the middle, it caused a marginal to negligible RMSF value change, as seen in 001100 versus 00310. Results also indicate that crease handle position closer to the folding line provided greater stability. Even distribution of crease handles also promoted better folding. For example, 110110 outperformed 111010, despite the latter having handles near the folding line. When crease handles were positioned further apart, stability improved in some cases. For example, RMSF value comparison showed 1401 was more stable than 012010 and 001100. The placement strategy we implemented also played a good role here. A configuration with a handle near the folding line and even distribution, 111000, was more stable than two closely spaced handles positioned near the folding axis was 110011. Some configuration displayed similar stability despite different distribution, as in in comparison between 100110 and 10130. But for triangular folding for HD design, Snoopy results didn't complete successfully for all crease handles configuration under the same parameters, making direct comparison inconclusive. In conclusion, this project is a new stone in the building of DNA origami. Our aim was to develop a method to enhance folding stability and controllability, enabling process construction of nanostructures, of course. Based on our study, we conclude for the massive conclusions. First, for the pair system, increasing the number of pairs in the DNA wireframe improved structural stability, as reflected by decreasing RMSF value. The triangular folding pattern for H2 demonstrate greater stability than rectangular folding. For the crease handle system, stability was influenced by the position and the distribution of crease handles. Handles placed near the folding line and evenly distributed generally produce better folding mechanism, and increasing the total number of crease handles also often enhances stability through additional handles in non-optimal space like the middle had minimal effects. Evenly spaced configuration with strategic placement near the fold line outperformed design with handles grouped far from the axis. Finally, our findings with these new principles could guide the design of more reliable, reconfigurable nanostructure for applications in nanotechnology, biomedical engineering, and gene therapy. Thank you for hearing me. Thank you for SRI team and my amazing mentor, Mian-Sun Kim, one of the best researchers, of course.
Alrighty, okay. That is the end of our symposium session. Congrats to all of you guys. Those were incredible presentations. Really appreciated the depth of all your research, also your engagement, and also the diversity of topics that we were able to cover in this session. So huge pat on the back to you guys. Really proud of you. You guys have done incredible work. And we have just a very quick segment at the very end. So whenever you guys are ready, you guys can return to the main room and we'll conclude there. But yeah, once again, so proud of you guys. Great job. Congratulations. And I'll see you guys back in the main room.
I think we're just waiting on one more room, so just hang tight for another minute or two, and then we'll be going. All right. I think we have everyone. Thank you all for your patience. Like I said, just a few minutes here. First and foremost, congratulations. You guys should all be really, really proud of yourselves. We were kind of talking amongst ourselves, and we really were impressed with just the quality of the presentations of the research themselves, but also how you all presented them, how knowledgeable you were on these topics. I mean, as high schoolers, it's really, really impressive. So thank you to you all for your efforts. Thank you to your mentors. You should be really, really proud. Just a few final notes and a small request before we go. Um, we spent weeks reading your applications, deciding on acceptances. You guys are a really incredible group of talented individuals and now researchers. We hope you've enjoyed your time, but we also want to let you know that your journey with SRI does not end here. First, we hope you've all had chances to connect with each other, with your peers in the cohort, and that you will continue to stay in touch. You really would be surprised where and how often some of you will see each other again as you cross paths. Second, you're all alumni of this program now. We try to provide the same opportunity to future years and future students. We need your help. We have an ambassadors program employing efforts of students like yourselves to reach communities of students that we would otherwise not be able to reach. Augustus, who many of you have now met, is one of the ambassadors, and it's been an absolute pleasure getting to work with him even after his time in the program. We'll hope you'll take us up on this and engage once we've ironed it out for this cohort. Um, you guys all know Augustus. You also met Azzy. They're awesome. They're really, really awesome, and this program wouldn't run as smoothly as it does without them. So send Augustus, thank you. But we have a lot of opportunities for you to get involved in the open bio initiatives. You're also part of the open bio family here at Harvard in general. Rest assured, we will have engagement opportunities for you to continue to contribute, learning, and to give back if you so please. On that note, we do have a quick exit survey for you. I'm going to put it up here on the next slide. We ask that you please fill it out before you go. It's just a few quick questions. The first will ask you about whether you'd like to be notified about opportunities to continue engaging with Open Bio. Just a quick yes or no. And then there's some questions about your time about SRI. What did the program mean to you? How did you like it? How has it informed your future trajectory? Is it something you'd recommend? That type of stuff. Any sort of quick anecdotes you might have, we'd really appreciate to hear. We'll also send a more, comprehensive feedback form later on. We want to get your initial reflections and thoughts right at the conclusion of the program. Unless Sahil, Sean, or anyone else has anything else to add, um, I'd say that you're free to go after you filled it out. We really, really appreciate you all joining us on this journey. We wish you all well. Be in touch and stay in touch, and we're really looking forward to see where you all go as students and as researchers. So thank you again. Fill out that form, and we'll be in touch.
All right, you guys are free to go. Congratulations on officially being SRI alum. We'll be in touch with results as soon as we have them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
Bye.
much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. I'm gonna remove. I think Chief Preet just had a question. I don't know if Luca's still there. I'm just gonna remove him from the meeting.
Alrighty,
Cool.
guys. Amazing
We're
job,
done.
Alexis. Thank you for joining. Thank you
Oh,
for helping out. We really appreciate it.
yeah, you're the man. Thanks, Augustus.
Yeah, happy to help.
And yeah, I mean, Sahil, Alex, you guys killed it. Congratulations as well on finishing. And yeah, we'll do like a full debrief, but I gotta say again, I mean, you guys absolutely nailed it. You guys have just done an incredible job. And like Hugh and I sort of watching from the periphery, you guys operate this thing. We're just so impressed and very grateful for the time and effort you guys have put into this. So seriously, thank you guys. And we'll do a proper celebration when we're back on campus in the fall. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. I guess just in terms of logistics, Sean, you have access to the YouTube, correct?
Yes.
Would it be okay if we all sent recordings to you and
Yeah.
you'd be able to get those onto the YouTube?
Yeah, that should be fun.
Okay, so Sean will be the point person, and we'll send him the four of us, and we'll coordinate with Zara. We will all send him recordings, and then Alex and I will coordinate on getting projects scored and taken care of.
Wonderful.
Augustus and Sean, if you could send us who you thought was like, the best in your room, just to give us
Yeah.
a starting list to work off of,
Yeah.
and then we'll coordinate that with judging platforms and all that.
Cool. Yeah, there are a lot. I mean, these guys are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'll
Feel free
nerd
to look
out.
over posters again if you want.
What's up?
Feel free to look over the posters again if you want.
Sure.
No rush.
For sure. Alrighty.
Cool.
You
guys are the goods.
Do you know where I can find do you know where it saves the videos to? If there's like how to
Did you
find
save them
that?
to your computer?
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when you go ahead, Sean.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're probably gonna say the same thing. Once this meeting ends, it'll start, I think, like uploading to your local drive, and then it'll just like pop up as a folder in your desktop or in your downloads or something, and then from there you can just send it off.
And will we have like a Dropbox or something? Because I don't know if it might be too big for Slack, right?
Yeah. I think we'll probably do Google Drive, and we can give you access to the SRI subfolder of OpenBio, and you can just put that in there.
Alrighty, thanks.
Wonderful. Cool. All right, I'm gonna log off, but thank you guys so much. You guys are the goats.
Thank you guys, fellas. Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.
So